kids were just running around barefoot, tracking through a huge puddle of blood. What's up, Freaksters? I'm Mr. Freaky, and I'm back at it again with another totally real, disturbing story. I used to work at the Disney parks back in the day, so I figured today's story would be a great time to reflect on some of the madness I experienced there. When I started working at Disney World back in early 2010s, the most annoying thing about the hiring process was that you didn't get to decide where you worked. They would usually just hire you for something broad like food and beverage or attractions, and then you didn't really know exactly where they'd put you. However, strangely enough, I was actually told in my interview where I was going to be put. I had a choice between a monorail associate or attractions attendant on Splash Mountain. Being an already lifelong fan of Splash Mountain at that time, I chose that one. I also felt like that would be a better way to meet a lot of people, and that was one of the main goals I had there working at the company. After being hired, I went to my first day of traditions, which is pretty much Disney's version of an orientation or indoctrination, whatever you want to call it. They ended up surprising me and telling me I'd be working at the circus at the back of Magic Kingdom. You know, the one with the Dumbo ride? I was not happy about this at all. Anyways, I started working and it wasn't too bad. There were some cool people and I ended up getting used to it eventually, even to the point where I found a favorite position in the area. It was pretty much being the person who just observes the kids playing on the playground in the Dumbo tent. You didn't really have to do much. Anyways, one day after receiving my bump, the playground was next for me, so I headed over there. However, when I arrived there, I realized quickly it was not going to be one of those times where I could just chill. The place was packed and kids were running around everywhere screaming. That was when I noticed a couple on the outskirts of the playground area. It was a middle-aged man with a black leather cowboy hat on, and a girl who looked to be his daughter standing next to him. She was maybe 8, but weirdly just stood there and watched the other kids. I walked up to them and said hello, asking how their day was going. And they looked at me very strangely. I noticed that the dad had some weird spider-looking tattoo on his neck. However, my attention was immediately drawn to a leather shoelace around his neck. At the end looked to be some kind of weird burnt branch tied to it. I looked down at his daughter and noticed she had one too. They then just said they were fine in a pretty condescending way and stepped away from me. I definitely thought this was a little suspicious, so I decided to radio a security guard to come over and check it out. But as soon as I turned back to try and see where they had went, I noticed they were no longer in sight. A kid ran past me with a bloody forehead, crying to his mom, barely able to speak. All I could understand was, she pushed me. And when I saw where it pointed, I almost vomited. It was a metal post at the base of the playground, where the kids were just running around barefoot, tracking through a huge puddle of blood beside it. I then looked down around me and noticed dozens of little bloody footprints all over the floor of the area, as well as a boy with a bloody handprint on his back. Panicked, another attendant and I pulled out our megaphone and informed all the guests that they had to leave the playground while we were shutting it down for maintenance. So the whole area was closed for almost an entire day, and I even had to fill out a witness statement because of all the madness that went down. I still didn't know what had happened, and I figured maybe it had something to do with the shady dad and daughter. She hadn't been standing too far from the kids, so it wasn't inconceivable. This ordeal disturbed me so much I realized that I kind of didn't like working attractions in the park anymore, and I decided I should probably transfer something else. So as soon as I could, I put in a transfer for Disney Vacation Club. I figured that would be a good way to work my way up in the company in more of like a professional role. And after getting accepted, I was placed at their guest contact center, which was basically just a clubhouse with a bunch of meeting rooms and an ice cream parlor, designed for guests to meet with a sales rep about purchasing timeshare. Considering these guests were basically just plugged straight from the parks by the sales reps, you really could get just about anyone coming through there. And let me tell you, one day, we got some weirdos. I was actually working at the front desk when they arrived. I remember basically just smelling a horrific smell of sweat come into the front doors, with about 15 other people waiting for their tours to start. You would think that many people might normally smell, but honestly, something was over the top about this one. Anyways, one of my coworkers ushered them into the main area where there was a little video presentation for them, and I just watched and didn't really think much of it. For the next couple of hours or so, I wasn't too busy. I just was kind of on the computer, which was standard for that job. At least until I was interrupted when I saw a police car with its lights on drive through the carport, as well as an ambulance drive by the front doors. They then wheeled out one of my female supervisors, Allison, on a stretcher. Eventually the police came up to the front desk and began to ask questions. He said that according to one of the cast members working at the rear desk, a father and daughter had checked out with Allison just a few minutes before. They had apparently struck up a conversation with her when she asked them what the briefcase was that they were carrying. The father apparently had this enormous leather briefcase on him that contained all kinds of homemade jarred remedies and pastes and stuff, as well as various written rolls of scripture inside it. He claimed to not trust Disney's medical team in case he or his daughter had a problem, so he had to bring his own stuff. Weird guy. Then he pulled out what could only be described as a homemade suture gun, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically something that if you can't do a stitch on somebody, it's like a staple gun that you can suture up a wound. So he started showing that off to the cast members. Then the man got excited and actually shot a suture into his hand in front of everybody and just laughed as he rubbed like this handmade gel onto it afterward. At that point, Allison and the other cast members sitting back there, they got a little scared and they decided to send a secret chat to transportation, which they were in the building next to ours, told them to get security over immediately. They also told police that the little girl was really excited about what her dad was doing. She kept being like, "Dad knows how to fix everything. He's even better than a doctor." Then the weird dad noticed Allison had a bit of a scratch on her arm. So he grabbed her hand and he told her he'd show her how good his medicine was. Allison started to freak out at this point and told him to let her go, of course. But he was determined to put this cream on her arm and she didn't really want to fight with him. So she kind of just let it happen, I guess. He squirted a little bit on her arm and then rubbed it in. And his daughter was like, "You'll be feeling better soon, don't worry." He then let her go and was like, "You'll thank me later." And just walked out the exit with his daughter. Allison sat back down to compose herself. Then she started feeling dizzy moments later. And her entire arm went numb before police arrived. I told the police that I didn't know anything about what had happened and didn't even notice the couple come in. Although he showed me a picture he had gotten of them from the security camera and I immediately recognized them. It was the weird guy and his daughter that I had seen the year before at the Dumbo tent. I told the cops about that and everything and I said to even check out that report I had filled out the year before. Allison actually quit after that. And thinking back on it, I wonder if that little girl was even his daughter. Or maybe she was just some kid he grabbed and brainwashed into worshiping him. Now, since I don't work there anymore, I guess I probably never know. But all that being said, some crazy stuff happens at Disney, and that's not even the surface of it. Let me know if you like the story in the comments, I'll keep posting more. Have a horrific evening, everyone, and remember to stay spooky, my friends.